Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the Monday Night Football picks between the Eagles and the Cowboys. We have a fun one tonight. Again, should be a high-scoring game. I hope you guys all had a good Sunday. It was a solid week 3 for Sunday. Did very well on the showdown, and then did good on the very good on the early slate, and then made some money on the main and afternoon slates. So let's keep it going tonight. If you want to join us, you can visit the website dfsprocess.net. Follow me on Twitter for updates. If you want to get some betting stuff, sometimes I post them if I do play at the DFS process. And NBA is right around the corner, so I might have I have to do a giving away pass for NBA, so I'll do that on Twitter in the next coming days. But let's get into this one. But always on these showdown slates, we want to take a look at the snap counts in the previous week, or at least the previous couple of weeks. You can look back at week 1 as well. Starting with the Eagles running back situation, they played Miles Sanders 2/3 of the time. Kenny Gainwell played a third of the time in week 2. Similar story in week 1, so you can kind of expect probably a similar story in week 3. At the wide receiver position for the Eagles here, obviously you're going to see Devonta Smith at the top of the list. He played 84% of snaps. Jalen Reagor played 72%. Greg Ward played 21%. We haven't seen his name yet catch a ball yet this season, but he was a big factor for them last year, and I think it's a matter of time before he at least gets a catch. And he is cheap enough on DraftKings to take a shot at $1,600 if he's going to play almost 40% of the snaps. And compared to a guy like Quez Watkins, who's really a great tournament play because he has so much upside. We saw that 91-yard play last week, but he's also a little bit risky because he's not going to be targeted a ton. So you might only get 3 targets. One of those might go for 50-plus yards, so it might work out. But really, I'm looking at Devonta Smith as a guy to target. Jalen Reagor sprinkled in there as well. And then the tight end situation, it's Goddard has leapfrogged Ertz. If you weren't aware in terms of just running routes and stuff, Ertz utilized a lot more for blocking. But both are on the field a bunch, and Ertz is only 22. So I like both of them. I probably like Goddard because I expect him to have a breakout season. And he's 66, so he's expensive. But I think he definitely makes it work if you want to play Jalen Hurts with Goddard and Devonta Smith. And looking at the Cowboys tight end situation, we saw Schultz play 73%. Jarwin played 47%. So they're on the field a bunch, especially without Michael Gallup. They're playing a lot more 2 tight end sets here. So both guys can run a decent amount of routes here, but Schultz is going to be the primary guy running routes at tight end. And then at wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper are going to be on the field basically the whole game. Not much doesn't make a ton of sense to take one of those guys out for much because they don't have Gallup in there, so they're really thin at wide receiver. But you saw Cedric Wilson play 58% of snaps. He's 44 on DraftKings, so it makes some sense. And then you have Noah Brown, who made his debut last week. He played 19%, played 12 snaps. He did catch, I think 15 or 16 catches last year. And he's only $200 on DraftKings, so he could be worth it as a flyer. And then running back, Cowboys now running out 2 running backs here, Pollard and Elliott. Elliott did play 70+% of snaps, but I think it's a matter of time if Pollard comes out of the gates like he did last week, that they kind of just stick with Pollard. He put up 109 yards on just 13 carries, 3 catches as well. He's 76, and Elliott is 84. So I think for the cash game, if you wanted to play one of those 2, you play Elliott just because he's on the field, probably going to be on the field more. But for tournaments, you can play Pollard instead. Or you can just avoid both of them just because the Eagles, even though they have given up some big games on the ground, they're still a pretty good defense, and the front 7 is solid. So looking at just some of the pricing on DraftKings here, I really like getting to both quarterbacks in this type of game here. Jalen Hurts, we all know the upside that he presents with the legs. He's rushed for 82 yards last week, rushed for 62 the week before, had as a rushing touchdown, 3 passing touchdowns in week 1. Bunch of upside for him. He only made 12 completions. It was a lot more of a defensive game. Last week, they couldn't really get the offense going, although they missed a couple of big plays. The one with Jalen Reagor, big bomb down the sideline. He stepped out of bounds. It would have been a touchdown, and then he missed Devonta Smith on a couple in the end zone, a couple deep shots. So the opportunity was there for some big plays, and you would expect him to have more than 12 completions tonight against the Cowboys defense, who has been giving up a ton of points, 24 on the so far, but they give up a ton of passing yards, and Hurts, if they kind of bottle up the run a little bit, Hurts can get out in space and make some noise for himself. So Hurts makes for a great captain play or a great flex play Dak Prescott, they utilized the run a lot more last week against the Chargers. It worked out after he threw 58 times in week 1. I would expect them to try to run the football again because the Eagles have been pretty good against the pass so far. Even though you might not throw 58 times, which is kind of ridiculous, I would expect him to probably get in the high 30s or low 40s tonight. So Prescott and Hurts, I want to get to both quarterbacks here in the showdown lineup. The wide receivers, you have CeeDee Lamb is 98, Cooper is 9K. Tough week for Cooper last week, only 5 targets against the Chargers, only 3 catches, 24 yards. He did drop a touchdown pass, which definitely would have helped. But now that he's cheaper than CeeDee Lamb, who did have a big week last week, I'm going to side with Cooper over Lamb if I just had to pick one just based on the pricing. Elliott's 84, so he is pretty affordable. It's a little bit risky, though, just because Tony Pollard is right there. They could vulture a touchdown or 2. You also have Miles Sanders at 8,000. I feel like I want to target the passing game a little bit more in this one. If I did have to pick a running back, it probably would be Elliott. But I think Sanders would be second, Pollard third. In terms of cash tournaments, probably looked at Pollard, then Sanders, and Elliott, because Elliott will get some ownership at that price tag. I love Devonta Smith tonight. He's going to be a focal point of the lineup here, or the core plays at least. He's $7,200, 7 targets against a tougher 49ers defense. They made it tough for him. He had some opportunities for big plays. Hurts missed him on a couple. He did have some end zone targets as well, some deep shots, but they're going to hit a couple throughout the season just by taking so many shots. He's on the field the most out of any wide receiver on the Eagles, and he's just going to get the most targets out of any wide receiver, most likely. Dallas Goedert is there at 66. Quiet week for him last week, only 2 targets, 2 catches, but then again, you got to look at Jalen Hurts' numbers. He only had 12 completions, so he did have, a quarter or a sixth of those targets, or a sixth of those receptions that Hurts did manage to find to his wide receivers and tight ends and running backs, and he's only 66 against the Cowboys defense that has been carved up in the past. So I like Goddard. He's behind Devonta Smith for me, though. And then looking at some of the value plays here, like Rieger at 62, I would probably rank it how they do have the pricing here. Smith my favorite, then Goddard, then Jalen Rieger. Rieger's a good tournament play, gives you some upside, but he's also a little bit risky because he's not going to get peppered with targets like Devonta Smith. And then you're getting into the value plays here with Quez Watkins is 54. It's a little bit pricey for me for just a safe play because he had that 91-yarder. He's a good tournament option, but for cash, it's a little bit risky at that price tag at 54. I think I might go to Gainwell, who you're guaranteed to get at least a handful of touches out of him. He had 11 in week 1, 8 last week. Probably will get a similar amount here, playing a third of the snaps. You can target the Cowboys with some pass-catching running backs, and he even got a couple of red zone work early on in week 1. So I don't mind getting to Gainwell at 5,000. Looking at the tight end situation for the Cowboys, you have Schultz is 48, and then Jarwin is 3K. Schultz is on the field a little bit more, but Jarwin can get you a handful of points pretty easily. So if you want to take some savings, you can go with Jarwin instead of Schultz, although they're both somewhat similar. Schultz is probably the higher floor guy, but in terms of point per dollar, it could easily be Jarwin. And then for the value plays, there's not a ton here. I like both kickers in this one because Zerline, Cowboys are going to be able to move the ball almost against any defense, even though Eagles have been solid the first couple of weeks. If the Eagles defense has managed to hold, which they have done so far a good job of last week against the 49ers, at week 1, they limited the Falcons to just 2 field goals. So if the Eagles defense does manage to hold the Cowboys once they move the ball inside their territory, they could force Zerline to kick some field goals, which would definitely help at 4,000, probably get you 10 or 12 fantasy points. I like Zerline more than Elliott because Elliott's not been as consistent and he's not been given a ton of opportunities so far. The Eagles moved the ball a ton in week 1 and they got a bunch of touchdowns. Last week, they were taking some shots deep as well. And Sirianni is a guy that also will go for it on 4th down, just like Doug Peterson. So if I had to pick between one more of the kickers, it would be Zerline, although I think you can make it work going both kickers. Cedric Wilson is 44. Probably like Zerline based on the value a little bit more than him. And then looking at just some punt plays here, you have Greg Ward, who's on the field almost 40% of the snaps. He hasn't done much so far. It could easily be on a showdown where he happens to catch a touchdown pass or have a couple of catches here against the Cowboys defense. So Ward is in the player pool for sure. I don't think, or say, a Whiteside will be in the player pool. And then the last guy you can mention is, or I want to mention is Noah Brown at $2K or $200. Just a guy that can play like 15 or so, or might be on the field for 15 or so snaps. You know, on a showdown, you got to basically take into account anybody that's going to get some opportunities, and he might get at least a handful. So that's basically the player rundown. Let's take a look at some potential lineup builds here. So let's do one with, if you do Devonta Smith at captain, I want to get jam in both quarterbacks. I probably want to get into Amari Cooper, leaves you with 4,000. So this is kind of one where you can go with Kenny Gainwell, and then you can go with Blake Jarwin if you wanted to do a split 3-3 approach. Or you can go with both kickers, Zuerlein and Elliott, which I don't mind. If you wanted to play like Greg Ward and be different in tournaments and just be a little bit risky, you can do that. And then you can play Jalen Reagor, full-on Eagles, almost onslaught, but you do bring it back with Prescott and Cooper. So that's an opportunity as well. Let's do one with Jalen Hurts at captain. Gives you so much rushing upside. Put in Prescott, put in Amari Cooper. Devonta Smith for sure. Leaves you with $3,000. So on this one, if you do play Ward, you're left with 45. So you could play Ward and Cedric Wilson. Or you could play Greg Zuerlein and Greg Ward and save $500. So that's an opportunity. And then we'll do one with Dallas Goedert at captain, because he does get a good amount of red zone opportunities. He almost had another touchdown last week. He was stopped at the 1-yard line. So if you jam in these three, bring it back with Prescott, Cooper, and then you can go with Greg Ward at $1,600. So basically the core plays for me on this one are going to be Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and Amari Cooper. Those are the four that I really want to get into my lineups, and I'll kind of make the rest work. So that's about it for the DraftKings look. Let's take a look at FanDuel. All right, looking at the FanDuel pricing, Hurts is the most expensive guy, so a little bit flip-flop here. Prescott second. Then you got Cooper, which I do agree should be a little bit more expensive than Lamb. Then you get Elliott at $12,000. You got Pollard at $2,000 cheaper than Elliott. Sanders sandwiched in between. Devontae sandwiched in between them. So I love Devonta Smith. He stands out. Goddard at a good price tag, $95. You have Zuerlein, $85. Kenny Gainwell. Jalen Reagor's price tag you would probably take a shot at, only $75 for a guy that's on the field for over 3/4 of the snaps. I like Reagor way more than Quez Watkins. If you want to take a shot on some of these Cowboys guys, you have Wilson, Schultz, Jarwin, all similarly priced. I'll probably rank it definitely. Schultz is my favorite, then Wilson, then Jarwin on FanDuel. And then you have like Greg Ward as just a punt play if you want to take a shot with him. So on FanDuel at least, you could go Jalen Hurts, throw in Dak Prescott, leaves you with over 9,000 left. So you still have opportunity to plug in Devonta Smith. You can go cheaper here for like a Jalen Reagor. Let's see, leaves you with 95. So this would be like a full-on Eagle stack if you want to plug in Goddard here as well. Do want to get to Amari Cooper. So I'll see if I don't play Jalen Reagor here. If I get to Cooper at 13, you're not able to make it work. It leaves you just 4,000. So you're probably going to have to like go with maybe Elliott instead. Or actually can't even go Elliott. You probably have to go with like Tony Pollard instead. Or you might have to fade like Prescott and just jam in Amari Cooper. But these three leaves you with 85. So you could go with Greg Zuerlein and then go with Kenny Gainwell or something like that. So you might not be able to get to Amari Cooper on FanDuel, which might be a little bit of a disappointment, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I do want to play Dak Prescott, though. He's $3,000 more, but I feel like he has way more opportunities to succeed. I do want to play Devonta Smith as well. So on DraftKings, you can make it worth going with the 4 studs. On FanDuel, it's not as likely, but I still like getting to these 3 and then making it work with the rest. So that's about it for the video. Thank you for watching. Best of luck tonight, and I'll see you all next time.